Oftentimes, the tales we hear of the Old West involve gold, cattle rustling, and running the local Indians off so we can take their land. Today's movie involves none of these things, and yet somehow still manages to fill a spot in that Western genre. Ladies and gents, may we present to you Hot Lead and Cold Feet. Welcome back to another episode of the Buena Vista Boys. My name is Jason, and with me is my co-host, Matt. What's up, Matt? Good to see you, man.
What's up? Hey, good to see everyone. Or hear them?
It's been a while. Yeah, well, not neither,
Hear
really.
us.
Yeah, it's good to see you and hear myself.
Glad to be here.
This is our official second episode, and what a show, what a movie, what a tour de force of acting has happened in this movie.
Yeah.
Hot Lead and Cold Feet is a Western unlike any other Western I've seen, and I'm not really like a Western head, right? My earliest memories of Westerns are of my dad watching old Gene Autry tapes. He was obsessed with Gene Autry. So I would go to Suncoast and, or like The Warehouse and get a collection of Gene Autry DVD or, VHSs for him and stuff for Father's Day. And that was like the coolest thing ever.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
The Western genre is my most hated. I do not like it.
I kind of don't like it either.
I don't watch Back to the Future 3 ever. I do not like Westerns. I've never been a fan. And yet I actually really enjoyed watching this. I had genuine laughs.
What is it about the genre you don't like?
I guess it's just there's no real color to a lot of Western movies. It's all very dusty. I'm not really interested in the story of we got to save this town from bad rustlers.
Yeah.
And, there's just I'm not saying that all Westerns, but there are a great many Westerns that are a lot of just guys with sweat on their face, chewing on cigars and the storyline's very thin and it's not very engaging for me.
No, I think the whole area, the whole thing, I'm trying to avoid using the word genre again because we've already done it 12 times.
Sure.
But the whole Western
motif
thing, there you go. It comes down to tropes.
Yeah.
And it's one of those movie categories that sort of relies on aesthetic to get a storyline across. And I don't want to say it's easy because writing anything isn't easy.
Yeah.
But it is like, oh, I'm writing a Western. So already you picture, kind of a rundown shack on a plain with nothing else around you. And it's like, okay, I already set the scene, whatever. I do like atmospheric kind of Westerns, like Pale Rider is that's a great Western, Clint Eastwood classics. And there's like one or two that are pretty good, but for the most part, I agree. They're all kind of samey. This town ain't big enough for the two of us. Yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly. But what is it? A Million Ways to Die in the West is one that I can actually get around.
Okay.
Just because it's it's all the things that are kind of funny about Westerns that Seth MacFarlane sort of brings to the top and addresses head on with that modern take. There's a scene in that movie where a guy pulls out a dollar bill and everyone freaks out. And the guy's like, take your hat off, boy. That's a dollar bill. It's just stuff like that is just funny.
You can definitely do a lot with it. Unforgiven was really good.
Oh, yeah. Unforgiven was really good.
Yeah. But yeah, there are a lot that just sort of rely heavily on that it's a Western and that already you're going to be, enthralled in whatever we have to say.
No, The Quick and the Dead. Sam Raimi's Quick and the Dead is totally rad.
Yeah, there's some bangers for sure. I wasn't too excited when you pitched this one. This is another your idea. But I agreed based on the name alone. I mean, Hot Lead and Cold Feet. How do you not want to know what the hell they're talking about? What does this mean? I mean, I imagine people are shooting at your feet while you're dancing or whatever. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
Which maybe there's some of that, but
and especially when you have the main poster and then subsequently, I think even the VHS is Don Knotts up to his neck in a mud puddle.
Yes. Yeah. You're like, what are you doing?
What movie am I about to watch? This makes no sense.
Well, also the implication putting Don Knotts on as the main focus of the one sheet or whatever is that he's in it a lot. And spoiler alert, he's in it for 8 breaths. Yeah. And that's it. He's just out.
He does his big snort, right? His
Yeah,
"Hey, I'm gonna check in what's going on around here."
he Don Knotts it up for sure. Released on July 5th, 1978, Hot Lead and Cold Feet stars Jim Dale playing the rare triple role as both Billy and Eli Bloodshy, as well as Mr. Bloodshy, who is, of course, their dad. Karen Valentine stars as Jenny, the school marm, which I could have just wrote school teacher, but I really like the word marm, especially in this context, so that's why I used it. Apparently, I learned she was born on a chicken ranch in Sebastopol, which is just north of where I am, kind of by Napa, actually, in California, which Sebastopol, Petaluma is a very big chicken ranch area for a while, so it's kind of neat. I don't know. She was like Miss Apple Blossom or whatever.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Darren McGavin. Classic Darren McGavin, and we'll talk about that later at the end. He plays the mayor, and of course, the aforementioned great Don Knotts plays the sheriff. So off the jump, like right when you push play, the synth music in the intro of the song is kind of off-putting, kind of ominous. It's really weird.
Yeah.
It spills into more of a classic or Western ballad style, which left me wondering if I really heard what I thought I heard at the beginning, which is never really a good start to to a movie.
No, it was very strange, and I honestly thought that we were about to watch an episode of Night Gallery. That's how most Night Gallery moments begin. For as much as it was a comedy, that music really changed the tone of what you are about to see.
A wagon appears off in the distance and rides swiftly through a wheat field, kicking up dust as it goes. Not on an approved trail, I might add. It's a travel montage, and we see classic Western themes in the accompanying shots, teepees, dusty trails, horses, all with a song playing that is where we get the name for the movie from. I gotta say, it's kind of a banger. I mean, the chorus has a modern feel to the timing, and it kind of feels fresh. So here's the intro.
May the best man win. May the best man win. May the best man win. Way out west, a rich old man had two such different sons. Eli spoke with Bible raised and Billy spoke with guns. Daddy Bloodshy left the will and Eli said that's fair. But Billy said no, let's fight it out. So I can get your share. May the best man win. May the best man win. May the best man win. The mayor said, folks, let's work it out by setting up a race. And everyone said, poor preacher man, he'll fall right on.
And it kind of slaps. I don't know. I kind of like it.
It's all right. I
kind of like the theme song. I think it's great.
As a device for telling you everything about the movie you're about to watch before you even see it.
Yes. Which I feel like is very classic, 50s, 60s, 70s, where it's like, here's a story that we wrote about the movie that you're going to see. So in case you were wondering what's going to happen, we're going to tell you what's going to happen up front before it happens. And then so you're better prepared for actually what happens, because we're on a mixture of Quaaludes and we have no idea.
And then also it's like, if you want to leave now because you just heard what the movie's about, you're like, nah, this sounds lame.
Yeah,
you can get out of here.
You
probably
man.
Still get a refund, which is great. At the very end of that, if you listen to it for too long, it just keeps saying hot lead and cold feet. And after a while, I was delirious and I was hearing hot lead and coffee.
Hot lead and coffee.
It's like, I guess that works too.
Look, the way our water is going these days, there's lead in everything. So the song and the opening credits end and we fade into two men talking about how much they both need a drink, which of course, classic. And this is what this movie does really well, is they take a lot of the Western tropes and they just cram them all together. It's almost Blazing Saddles-esque in the way that they sort of, I think, play with that canvas, with that paint of, we're doing a Western, but we're going to sort of mock it, but not as viciously as Blazing Saddles did. Yeah. But it's very much like, we're playing with it. It's fun. Don Knotts with the smoothest double take you ever did see, and the wagon from the opening scene approaches. We see by the tin star on his jacket that Don Knotts is the sheriff. And I don't know if you noticed, but if you look closely, there's a bullet hole in the middle of the star.
I did not see that. That's awesome.
And so he's wearing that. So, either he, and then he alludes to later on in the movie about, how he didn't get to wear that star for being a coward or something like that. I don't remember. And it's like, oh, okay. So Don Knotts shot the other sheriff and now is the sheriff, which in some Westerns, that was like the role to be. You wanted to be the sheriff. And then in a lot of Westerns, then it became like sort of mocked. Oh, the sheriff. What are you gonna do?
That was specifically support your local sheriff. Yeah, I think Don Knotts, one of the things right away about this movie that I liked is he's always playing people who have, even when he's rough, he's got somewhat of an agreeable character to him, where there's something sweet about him, or he's like, he's in a bad situation, but he's a good guy. And this role, you kind of, I'm waiting for that moment. I'm waiting for that more Don Knotts moment where he's more like Mr. Limpet, and he's pretty much scumbag through this whole thing.
Yeah, he very much has that aura of non-threatening, but in this movie he doesn't have that. It's like he can sort of do whatever. He's unexpected. He will do whatever.
That's what I'm saying. He's
to.
Underhanded the whole time. So it's like, he's not directly like threatening, like, because he does still have that Don Knottsian kind of attitude.
I feel like you should rephrase that for a second. I think you just called Don Knotts a Nazi. That's all right.
Don Knotts-esque.
Sure, that works a little bit better.
But he's got that thing where it's like, he's kind of like a big teddy bear, but he is so underhanded and willing to switch to whatever side he thinks is gonna win. That he's not above poisoning you or making sure a rock gets dropped on you.
So the coach stops in front of the two men. Out steps an old man, Mr. Bloodshy, played by the aforementioned Jim Dale, talking about his will, how he found his other son, his long-lost son, and how much time he has left until he dies. So he had better figure out what to do with all of his money and all the property he owns. So Mr. Bloodshy owns the town of Bloodshy and just as far as the eye can see, this is all my property kind of thing. So they're overlooking like a winding river, and it's windy on the trail that overlooks it. And as the other men talk about how shocked they are that Bloodshy has a will and he wants to figure all this stuff out, the wind blows Mr. Bloodshy off his feet and over the side of the cliff, or so we think. Yeah. Turns out this is all a ruse, and we'll no doubt figure out later because the driver of the coach, what's his name?
Oh, Mansfield?
Mansfield, yeah. Mansfield gets a nice close-up shot of his face, and he gives a little smirk, and in case they're like, oh, they fell for the thing, and in case that didn't do it, that to tell the audience that this is a trick, there's a little woodwind trill, and it's like really ominous music, and it goes, so we already know it's a setup somehow. I mean, this man, Mr. Bloodshy, is old. He looks frail, and he just does a full gainer, like off.
Yeah, right after he says
cliff.
the doctor gives him 2 days to live.
The next scene has us moving locations to a town center where a man and 2 children are playing a song and drumming up donations for charity. The ragged townsfolk had clearly had enough of these people and fire off a few rounds of veggies at them, trying to chase them off. But instead of seeing them flee, we see the man get a letter delivered to him, all the way from Arizona territory. Then he gets beamed in the face by a tomato and drops out of the frame. And I have a little bit of that too. The man is Jim Dale again, but playing Eli Bloodshy.
Everybody, something good is bound to happen when love is in your heart. For love and human kindness is where good things always start. There's goodness in your neighbors. There's goodness. Yeah. Now. Spread love and good. Let's stop that racket.
Let's get out of here.
These vegetables tell me something. We've got their attention. Get out of here.
Those guys over on 10th Street were listening a lot better. They were throwing rocks.
Eli, is that you?
Oh, Brother Joshua.
I'm sorry to bother you doing your work, but I have a very important letter for you.
What, a letter?
Yes, it's marked special delivery and urgent. And look at that postmark.
Arizonan territory.
That's way out west.
That's curious.
Good shot, Harry.
I didn't know my father. In fact, I didn't even know I had a father. Now I've found him and I've lost him all in one letter.
And they're just crouched behind a bunch of boxes, getting beamed in the face with rotten food. I'm like, just leave, just go. What are you doing?
There's a moment where one guy he beans Eli really good, and the other guy gives him a really encouraging, like, nice job, Hector.
You did great.
These guys are having the time of their lives.
Yeah, it's pretty good, man. Back in the days when you can just throw stuff at people and it's fine. It's like, get out of here. We don't want to hear the singing, or you drumming up money for charity or whatever.
Were those just vegetables left out for like bad street performances? Like, I didn't see a vendor going like, hey, why are you taking all my stuff? Like, I didn't see anyone there selling anything.
It's like the rumor when the Black Lives Matter riots were going around, and people were like, Antifa is dropping off pallets of bricks.
Yeah, they're just like, I'm just gonna leave all these crowbars right here.
Yeah, let's leave all these rotten tomatoes and kind of fresh looking heads of lettuce. Honestly, I mean, they didn't look too bad. They still were really green.
I know.
So that happens. He gets his letter from Arizona territory. We cut back to the family house where Eli, he has a very bad Liverpudlian accent. Turns out the actor Jim Dale is from the UK, so I don't know if he's putting on an accent. He sounds like he's trying to be like from Liverpool, like from the north or whatever. And maybe that's his normal speaking voice. I don't know, but I just learned that before we started recording. I'm like, oh man, this is a weird take then. But Eli is shocked to hear that he had and lost a dad that he never knew about. So clearly this is the long-lost child of Mr. Bloodshy we learned about just a few moments ago. We also learned that the two kids with him are orphans, and this organization is some kind of a church thing or whatever. It's not really clear at that moment. Nor does it really matter.
And they say that he's an orphan too, which is interesting. So you never find out when, because he went out there with his mother. And you never find out when his mother passed, but apparently it was young enough that he's considered an orphan.
That's true. You know what? I didn't think of it that way. I guess I thought of it like, well, he didn't have a dad and then his mom died because he's a man, right? And so
he's
it's
a
like,
grown man.
Oh, I'm orphaned as well. Like he's trying to bond with the kids.
Maybe that is a
know.
line read that where it's like he doesn't have a dad anymore, and they're like, oh, you're an orphan like us now. Okay. I could take that.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah. So now we're back in Bloodshy territory. This is a little bit jumping out to kind of set up everything, but this is where we are. We're in Bloodshy territory where Billy, the known son of Mr. Bloodshy, is grieving the death of his father in the most normal way possible, shooting highball glasses off the heads of townfolk. And it took me several moments at this point to realize that the two sons are twins. Billy and Eli are exact lookalikes. And then if I had paid attention to the credits, I would have known that the same guy, Jim Dale, is playing both the brother and Mr. Bloodshy.
Yeah.
So I had no idea. I just didn't pay attention. I'm like, in the opening credits, I'm watching the wagon. I'm looking at the dust. I'm going, who cares about the credits? But I kind of forget, like, at this time in cinema, all the information is put up front.
I remember when you messaged me and you were like, I cannot keep these guys straight. I don't know what's happening here.
Had no clue. I'm like, oh, look, it's this guy. He kind of looks the other guy, but
well,
why?
To be fair,
totally different accent.
Yeah, I mean, the actual cast has a problem later with it too. Like they don't know who's who.
That's true. Yeah. The mayor hatches a plan to prevent the newly found brother from ever showing up to claim his inheritance. There's a lot of information being passed around in this scene. It's very, very quick. There's no telephone or cell phone, so I don't know how they're doing it. But but you already got the mayor, and so the mayor is
Darren McGavin and he
Darren
is
McGavin.
chewing this scene up.
But that's what he got. He's great, man. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, no, he's basically looks like a guy who's about to tie a lady to the train tracks. He's got the mustache, right? He's got kind of the clean clothes. He's like the cleanest person in town because he's the mayor. He
would tie someone to the train tracks, but then he would also cut a check for charity.
Yeah.
If you put his name on a building. Like he's like that kind of guy.
Yeah. No, he's playing a lot of angles, which I'm psyched about in this movie. He's doing a great job.
Now, jumping back to Eli and the two kids, they have made plans to come out to Bloodshy territory to Arizona territory to claim Eli's inheritance. a coach arrives to pick up Eli and the two kids. The people who are driving the coach to bring him to town get a good look at Eli and confuse him with Billy. And this kind of happens in the first part of the movie. They fall all over themselves to make Eli, who they think is Billy, as comfortable as possible. Like that's how, obviously they're twins, right?
Yeah.
But one notices the accent that Eli is talking by saying, Billy sure is talking funny, but they excuse it anyway and take off. Like who could look like exactly like the town, thug, right? Because Billy is drunk. Everyone is afraid of him. There can't be anybody that looks exactly like him. So it must be Billy playing a prank on us. So let's follow along and see what happens. We have some epic travel music, and you'd think we're in for another travel montage where Eli gets to town and everything's fine. But just a few seconds into the journey, the coach is stopped by roadmen, which are the very same roadmen that the mayor was speaking with. And they are there to make sure that Eli doesn't come into town. But they say they're there for the passenger. But when he steps out of the coach looking exactly like Billy, the would-be robbers think it's all a joke. Like, oh, Billy, what are you doing today? You got us, man. We got fooled. There's a Gatling gun in the center of the road. It's just this big behemoth. Eli moves the Gatling gun out of the way, and it goes off, starts shooting, scattering the men, and forcing the coach drivers to dump their cargo, like dump the suitcases of everybody, and just take off. Which is all very, there's a lot of, thinking about it now, there's a lot of actions that would need to take place when a Gatling gun's going off, or like get up on top of the coach, throw everything out, get back in the seat, and then and then go off without getting hit with anything. But Billy and the kids not Billy, Eli and the kids are left behind.
I think what I take away from this scene the most is how excited Marcus is about this entire thing. He comments about how
the little boy
just got to town. And they've already been robbed at gunpoint.
Oh boy!
He's psyched.
Oh, almost instant death. Great.
It's funny actually how much we'll get into this later, but how violent everything around these two kids are, and they take it in stride. Like they're very resilient children.
That's true. They're trauma bound. So walking towards town on the wagon
Gatling gun,
carrying the Gatling gun. Yeah, he just we better bring this to the sheriff, he says. A small runaway wagon screams into the scene and skids into a ditch. Jenny Willingham, the teacher, just so happens to be going as far as Bloodshy, which is an awesome coincidence. So I got a little bit of this.
I'm so tired I can hardly walk. Don't worry. When we go through the Badlands, you'll be running.
We don't run, we walk. Head high, Brother Marcus. By holding good thoughts and relying on the power within us, our burden shall be lifted. Do you remember that prophet of old, Elijah?
Not again.
Oh, yes, a man of righteousness and goodness. He was sent to his final victory, his eternal destination, in a fiery chariot.
Whoa! Whoa there! Whoa! Whoa, boy! Whoa! Whoa there! Look out!
Are you all right?
Yes. These critters always seem to have a mind of their own. Hey, what are you doing in the middle of the road anyway?
We were just walking along. We didn't expect a wagon to
Are you going to stand there babbling or help me with this rig?
We'll help. Give the lady a hand.
Fiery chariot.
I imagine you could use a lift too, huh?
Oh, thank you very much. Where are you going?
As far as Bloodshy?
Oh, that's a coincidence. So are we.
First the fiery chariot, and now she's taking us to Bloodshot. See, you don't have to run at all if you listen to what Brother Eli says.
Thank you. Hey, I'm Jenny Willingham.
Are you a dance hall girl?
No, I'm a school teacher.
How do you do?
That's to your point where it's like, God, this kid is just into it, man. And she goes, no, I'm the school teacher.
My man is psyched.
So they get a lift into Bloodshy, which is great. And we get into town and we get our very first look at the vibe of Bloodshy from outside the saloon. And it's very much a rowdy place. In one shot, in one just kind of pan or whatever, you have every Western trope happening. You have a shootout. You have a fist fight. You have several fist fights. I think you have a man carrying off a woman over his shoulder. You have abandoned buildings. We follow Mansfield, the coach driver from the opening scene, to the jail, which is burnt out. Of course, why not? And Don Knotts is asleep at his desk. Strangely, he has one man in the jail cell, even though there's literally shooting and kidnapping happening all around. The jail's like half burned out. Oh, I think I already said that.
And something that's fantastic in this whole section is you have the opening scene where they're fighting and shooting, and then subsequent scenes. They did a great job of making sure that was always happening in the background. I clocked multiple things going on in the background. There's fist fights going on. Some guy had a rope around another guy.
Oh, geez. Oh, yeah. There was dragging him behind a horse or something, right? Yeah.
And it's just
crazy.
Always happening. And they do a great job of choreographing that and making it something you can see, but it doesn't detract from the foreground of like what's going on.
Mansfield is carrying the will of Mr. Bloodshy, and the two men take it to the mayor, where he announces his plan to have Eli miss the contest that is proposed in the will. Eli enters town, and there's even more unhinged stuff happening. There's dudes throwing dynamite into an open window, then riding off on horseback. You have two ladies of the night fighting in the street. This is no place for a God-fearing man, man. I'm shocked that Eli would even set foot in a place.
Oh,
like
I know,
that.
but this man loves his sinners. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, it just might be the right place for three missionaries. Really, just put every Western into a blender and you have this scene, which I suppose is the point, because at one point you have like 10 dudes all within 5 feet of each other just shooting at nothing.
Dude, I loved that shootout where one guy says, "Hey, get that guy." Everyone pulls guns and shoots every direction.
Yeah, except at each other, which I guess just underlines the joke. I mean, that's like the high watermark for the whole joke. Eli walks into the saloon carrying the Gatling gun, and everyone flips out and runs away because, of course, they think it's Billy, right? Oh, here he comes. Billy's
Some
at
drunk
it again.
asshole
I think
like stole the Gatling gun.
Yep, here he is. Don Knotts tells Eli about the will, and before anyone can say anything, Billy rides into the saloon, shooting and hollering. Everyone is confused, and they really do a neat trick showing both Billy and Eli reacting to one another in the same shot with a saloon mirror, and it's pretty clever.
Yeah,
actually.
I like the way this turned out. I thought it was interesting that they kind of did that faux mirror thing where it's like two guys stand up and then they like, "Hey, that's me in the mirror," you know, but it's sort of like a real person.
Yeah.
And then they did that great reverse shot. So you could have both of them in the same shot reacting to each other. It was very clever.
Yeah, and I think they underlined Billy's character too, where he's like shooting at the mirror. He's like, "Hey, the mirror's still talking to me." Like he's very
idiot,
drunk or whatever. Like he's not very smart, but he's brutal. So the mayor reveals to the town there is a race, and it's laid out in the will, and it's to take place on the Bloody Bloodshy Trail. Which, if you have a trail named after you, and the first word is bloody, that's probably not a good trail to be on.
Oh, Lord, it ain't bad enough. I got me a brother. He's a tambourine whacker. Yeah. Well, Eli.
Eli.
Yes, Eli. Well, yes, we do have an inheritance, but well, there's a little contest involved.
What kind of a contest?
Oh, between the two of you. It's spelled out right in here. Yes, in detail. Yeah, there it is. Winner take all.
Between him and me?
What does it consist of?
Well, just a little race. Nothing to be worried about.
Now you come on now, Eli. Let me show you the town that your daddy built, huh?
I'll see you later, Billy.
A little race, huh? On the Bloody Bloodshy Trail.
Well, if I was you boys, I'd get a few bets down in the big city. That way, whilst I'm cleaning up on the Psalm Singer, you boys can be cleaning out Reno.
Did you hear that Darren McGavin voice that he uses from Christmas Story when he's like, it's smiling at me. He's got to cut the...
Eli. Oh, God, so good, dude. That's a classic, man. Guy is a classic. So, as the mayor gives Eli the tour around town, showcasing the worst of what the town has to offer, of course, there's more fighting and stuff going on in the background, Eli looks at this as an opportunity to revitalize the town. Even Jenny is getting ready to bounce. He goes and tells her, "Hey, there's going to be, it's going to be great." And she goes, "Yeah, I know about the race. I'm leaving. They don't want us here." But Eli has faith and also a great deal of naivete.
But yeah, I like that Jenny lays out a bunch of stuff because it's like we as the audience are like, okay, well, this is a little race, no big deal, right? And we don't know what the Bloodshy Trail is. And then what I like is the the little bit of narrative that they give Jenny, where she's like, how are you at shooting the rapids? How are you at the 6 horse? You know, and you're like, oh, what the hell?
Yeah. How does she know all of, we only know as the audience what's been told to us in the last scene. But she somehow knows exactly what's going on. So she's steeped in exposition.
Yeah. No, and I was like, okay, that's kind of clever. I like that we're getting a little bit more dribbled out to us, like character by character.
So Mayor Ragsdale then goes to his men and gets them to assure him that they will finally be able to get rid of Eli. They were unable to get rid of him before coming into town. Now, before the race or even during the race, they need to get rid of Eli, because if he doesn't finish, then they can sort of, I get the idea that they can control Billy. So they want everything sort of status quo at first. Yeah. Just to get rid of Eli, get him out of the way. Everything goes to Billy. He's a known factor.
See, that's what I was trying to figure out, what the mayor was really up to, because that's the one thing they don't feed you. And later I was actually happy with how it all played out, because they sort of do address his ultimate goal. But that was the interesting thing to me, because I was like, why is he seriously trying to kill Eli? Eli seems like a kitten. Seems like Billy'd be the one you want to get rid of, but you're right. I think that Billy's a numbskull, and he's
right.
Like, no, it's much easier to, like, just throw meat to the dog and have that dummy go chase stuff instead of having an actual smart person around.
I agree. So we skip around a little bit and we end up at Eli's first revival meeting, because of course, he's a Bible thumper, a tambourine tickler, or whatever he was called before. And he has to have, he has to bring religion wherever he goes. And I wonder why we need this plot device. Like, I wonder why he needs, I guess it's showcasing the good and then the bad, but it is very like, I'm coming into a town that is just full of fighting and gunfight, and I'm going to just start preaching to everybody. And maybe that's the mindset. I don't know, but it seemed really weird.
There is a shift, an immediate shift in the movie and in the context of all the characters in the town right after this meeting. Because once this meeting is over, you see no fighting in the background really anymore. Almost every scene is people actually walking places and doing things like a town. And this scene has like the most civil, normal people in it. And it is a weird break from everything we've seen before. Like these are like the two main guys who are doing the exposition are totally normal. They seem like regular, normal people that would not be shooting or fighting anyone.
And I guess that was what sort of set it apart for me for the rest of the movie. It seems like a different movie.
It does. That scene, after that, the scene feels like a normal Western. It doesn't feel like a cartoon anymore.
Yeah.
Well, not in that respect.
Mr. Sure, right. Yeah. We find Mr. Bloodshy, the aforementioned dead Mr. Bloodshy, very much alive, and he kind of pops in and out like a little devil every now and then. But he's up in the rafters of this revival meeting spying on Eli, which is pretty bold considering he's supposed to be dead. The townsfolk who do show up seem to want to have the town cleaned up and are buying what Eli is selling. So Eli is emboldened and goes across the street to his brother at the saloon to see about stopping the race and splitting the money to help make the town better. He gets run out of the saloon and somehow does a flip off of the sidewalk into the mud. I got a little audio of this.
Brother Billy, may I suggest... Brother Billy, may I suggest... Brother Billy, may I suggest we put aside this contest and join our hands together for the benefit of the community? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're afraid to race me.
Well, certainly not, but I think it's silly for two grown men to compete with each other.
Now, if and you don't run in that race tomorrow, you're nothing more than I thought you was. A yellow-bellied, lily-livered coward from the city. Now you get out of here before I'm obliged to blow your brains out.
But we still don't have this settled. And I'm not leaving here until we do.
Oh, you're not, huh?
No.
The Pace pecani sauce commercial.
Yeah. I mean, I will say Jim Dale does some pretty fancy twirling of the six.
You notice that too. I will give him credit for that. Absolutely. That guy is swinging that gun around. Even as a prop,
it's pretty good.
He's doing great.
Also, I'll give him credit for having a 9-shooter look like a 6-shooter. I mean, he did not reload at all, but he was shooting the piano, and it was
this
really
great
weird.
17 shooter I got.
What I don't understand about Westerns, like especially like this, right, where you have the kind of plot device of one bully who runs the town and everyone's afraid of him. In that scene, if he runs out of bullets, shoot him. Like, it's the Wild West. What are we doing? Just, shoot him. Kill him.
There are 17 men shooting at each other in the street. You can't have those 17 men just all shoot Billy at the same time. That's ridiculous. Right? But I do like Billy in this movie uses a gun like when Peter Griffin gets a gun. He's opening cans with it. He's shooting ropes with it. Like, he's just shooting at people's feet to get them to talk faster. That's great.
Finally, Matt, it's race day.
Oh, yeah, baby.
There's a band and the whole town has turned out. Don Knotts is up as the sheriff. He's laying out the rules, which for some reason involve, like Jenny was saying, driving trains or steam donkeys or iron donkeys, I think is what they're called. Rowing canoes and driving a 6-team horse and carriage. I don't know what this has to do with anything, but that's what you do in the West.
Backwoods triathlon.
Yeah. Billy has what is probably the coolest jacket ever made on. It was like, it wasn't a poncho, but it was made with that kind of like material that kind of like.
Agreed.
It was amazing.
That thing would be $400 at Patagonia.
Easily. And it was like, the base color was like cream and it had like different colors on it. It looked smart.
So good. I don't know who he killed to get that, but it was a good choice.
Yeah.
Worth it.
The mayor's men starting to sabotage the steam engines that are in the first part of the race. And as Mr. Bloodshy watches on, he realizes Eli is going to need some help. So in the beginning, Mr. Bloodshy is like, oh, that son of mine, a Bible thumper, he's going to lose. And then as more and more of the mayor's men called the Sneeds, which we don't really know until halfway through, when they start sabotaging, he's like, well, that's my boy. Maybe I'm a jerk anyway, and I should help my boy.
Yeah.
So they're trying to sabotage the steam train, which is really just like a steam engine on like a box with wheels. It's nothing. It's like you can barely move around. It's very small. It's not like a train that you're thinking of.
It is weird. It's like somebody put a bunch of those crates that you carry like fruit in, like those wooden crates. It's like if somebody built a steam engine with that like around the engine
right.
base. It's very weird.
Right. So Jenny and the kids approach Eli and they give him a white hat, of course. I mean, why wouldn't they? Billy has a black hat.
It's the one trope we were missing.
Eli has to have a white hat. Yes, absolutely. And just as the race is about to begin and both men are on their iron donkeys, Jenny gives Eli a kiss for good luck. These trains, like we were saying, are literally small steam engine on wheels. There's nothing to them. There's barely enough room to stand, but they're gonna go for it. So the race starts. Billy's train goes forward. Eli's train goes in reverse, derails, crashes into a building. Now, Disney chaos ensues, and Eli's train takes off finally in the right direction, but not on the track, which, as everybody knows, is classically physically possible. There's no physics in a Disney movie, I guess, as we all know. And you can't really drive a train on the dirt. That's why there's tracks.
Yeah.
But he doesn't care. And he just, there's traction, apparently. And he's just going forward.
He crashes through a building like it's no big deal.
Yeah, right.
Like a
doesn't
Looney
slow him
Tunes
down.
character.
Yeah, absolutely. Meanwhile, Billy had to stop to wait for some reason. Like he stops and looks back and goes, "What's going on? Why?
Yeah.
Why? What's going on?" He's like, "Was going to shoot his brother in the head the night before," but now he's like, "Well, now I don't know what's happening."
He's like, "I kind of miss him."
And this gives the kids and a few town folks time to help get Eli's train back on the track, which also sounds very hard to do. I mean, just because it's not like a full blown like steam engine, it sounds really heavy.
Yeah. No, it's at least a Toyota Camry in weight. Like, I mean, that thing is all made of iron.
Easily. Since Billy waited, he's now losing. So they get Eli's train back on track, and then he has momentum, and then Billy goes, oh, maybe I should start driving. So now Billy's behind. And this is the dumbest race I've ever seen in my entire life. Eli he's off the track again. He's running through a Native American camp. Dogs are chasing him. It's chaos. Never mind the physics, like we said, of train wheels not having traction on dirt. We're still going. We're still moving forward. We're still in the race. Eli drives right off a cliff and into the river below, which is very convenient because that's where the canoes are located for the second leg of the race.
I know.
Well, it's interesting because he crashes through a teepee, and so maybe it like slows his descent. I didn't really understand the point of it. And
I don't know, with iron though.
Yeah, right. Look, man, what are you gonna do? And Billy is down at the starting line / finish line with the Sneeds. And they go, what's that? And he goes, I don't know, maybe another one of them Indian sacrifices. I'm like, where did this come from? What are we talking about?
I know. And then what's great about the one moment where Billy might not be an idiot is he goes, a whole teepee? Like, you're right. That is a little excessive, Billy.
Well, now we're on the river. The canoe race has started. The canoe leg of the race has started with Billy close behind because Eli is again in first because he's already in the water.
Mm-hmm.
So then he gets in his canoe and then just starts, cooking. And Billy's like, wait a minute, why am I so slow? And just as a side note, this is how good of a job Disneyland, the park, did with the rivers of America. Because I swear I had to rewind this part of the movie because I wasn't sure if it was actually shot on the rivers of America in the parks for some reason, even though I knew it wasn't. Yeah. It looks like it. They did such a good job of the foliage and the types of trees that are around. It was, just a side note for that.
Yeah, even that preceding land that butts right up against the water.
Yeah.
Like Disney did a great job of like getting that land transition. Because, like when you go up to a river, like the dirt is different than, 15 feet back.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was weird. It tripped me out. I'm like, wait a minute. I know this can't be real, but yeah. Anyway, Eli breaks his canoe and falls in the water, I think through the rapids or whatever. Well, Billy finishes the race dry and intact. And I got a little bit of audio of that.
Looks pretty good for you, Billy.
Yeah, pretty bad for him.
Hey, look. Am I seeing what I think I'm seeing?
I could have told him this race would get him, one way or t'other.
Well, looks like you might get your chance.
I don't believe it. I just don't believe it.
Hey, you better get a wiggle on, Billy. That fella's still kicking.
And that's Eli crawling out of the primordial ooze there. You better get a wiggle on, Billy. And really, I included that specific scene because I love the way Billy delivered the line of one way or t'other.
Yeah. Giving Billy his due, he's actually taking this race very serious. At no point is he personally, at least at this point, trying to cheat in any way. He is going through the motions correctly.
That's true.
For as much of a jerk as this guy is, and he is, he's playing by the rules.
Right. He absolutely is. Yeah. So right before Eli gets to climbing the mountain, there's a mountain climbing scene. Billy's men gives Eli water. Like, oh, you have to freshen up. You have to get some water. You have to bring in water on the mountain trip. And they say it's mountain water, which is just booze. But Eli doesn't know because he's a teetotaler, I guess. And Eli takes a big drink from the canteen and is instantly hammered. Like instantly bachelorette party midway through, just smashed, right?
17-year-old first beer.
Yeah, yeah. So we cut back to the town and we see Don Knotts delivering an update to the townsfolk via carrier dove, which I thought was kind of clever, really. I mean, that's the only way that the town's going to know what's going on and to carry that plot through to the town without having like a rider go and deliver the message. But it's just a carrier dove. Here we go. Here it is right here, everybody. And everyone's, happy or whatever.
I know it's cheap too. It's like, hey, we had a couple of birds on set. We just unwrap a piece of paper from one of them and there we go.
Yeah, that's it. I thought this plot device was pretty unique, if not a bit hard to swallow, which is a bird joke. This leads to the mayor outlining his updated plan to one of the men, or one of the Sneeds, which is to blow up not only Eli, but now Billy as well, which would leave him to be the sole owner of the town and the inheritance, since he's the executor of the will. And I got a little bit of that nefarious action.
Now, if you don't get that preacher on the mountain, you make sure you get him at Devil's Gorge.
I told you, quit worrying. Ain't no possible way you can get by that gorge. Ain't no possible way.
That's good, that's good. All right, now here's the gravy that I promised you. Now, after you get rid of that psalm singer, pay attention. We're planning a little dynamite party for Wild Billy at Dead Man's Pass.
Wild Billy?
Yep.
You want to get rid of Wild Billy, too?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's something else again.
No, wait. You see, I've doctored that will. You see, if nobody wins, then the money in the saloon, the whole town goes to the executor of that will, and that's me. Now, you and your brothers, being my partners, well, you'll get, half. Well, now, do you want to bump off Wild Billy?
Does a coyote like to howl?
All right. Now, here's where you're going to come down the trail, right here, see? Right there. Now, that's where you put the
Gives him a
dynamite
map
there.
and the whole thing's crazy,
God.
man.
Yeah, man. That's so many good little lines in there.
Yeah.
I love that.
But little does the mayor know, Matt, that not only are the two kids listening in, but Mr. Bloodshy is as well. So everybody now knows his plan, even though he was trying to keep a secret. And as the bad guy, the Sneed, is walking away, one of the kids steals the map, showing the location of where the dynamite is going to be planted, which is, of course, why not? The kids wrangle Jenny, and the three take off to save Eli. The mayor's boys are after Eli, throwing rocks and a big boulder down the side of the mountain at the man. He's, swinging along, drunk as hell, managing to stumble and sway his way out of danger, at least for now.
When they get to the big boulder, that big one, I couldn't help but notice when it went over the edge, it had like a nice big foamy bounce off the edge of the cliff.
That's the Disney physics, man.
Yeah.
Jenny and the kids arrive just in time as Eli is left hanging on a rope across the raging river. Suddenly, Mr. Bloodshy also arrives and breaks his no contact rule by interfering with the man trying to kill Eli. Jenny sees this and thinks Mr. Bloodshy is trying to kill Eli, and she jumps on his back, knocking him out and saving Eli. Hooray! Meanwhile, Billy is long gone, having left his 6-horse wagon. He took off in the wagon. He's finishing the race, you know what I mean? But everybody's, trying to save Eli. The kids and Jenny lay the dynamite plot out for Eli, and Eli only thinks of one thing, saving his brother. Jumping in their 6-up wagon, they take off. Only the wagon breaks from the team and crashes into a tree. The heroes are stuck. Or are they, Matt? Are they in fact stuck? It just so happens that the wagon crashed right near where the mayor's men are waiting for Billy and Eli with the dynamite. Who would have ever thought that it was just right down the road?
Convenient.
A tussle ensues, and eventually Eli, Jenny, and the kids are captured. Just when it looks like all hope is lost, something very confusing happens. Mr. Bloodshy pops up with a rifle, accidentally shoots a tree branch, which falls down and hits 2 of the Sneed men, which frees everybody. But then another branch falls, this time on the plunger for the dynamite. It goes off, Billy is buried by rocks, and Eli runs down the hillside to see if Billy is okay, of course, which takes like 30 seconds of screen time to do.
Billy! Billy! Billy!
Are you just gonna stand there caterwauling all day?
Thank heaven you're safe!
I might have known it. Never trust a Bible banger.
You went and ruined everything.
What? The wheel says may the best man win. Now I ain't so sure I am the best man.
No, you've got to.
You saved my life. Now how am I gonna whip a man who saves my life?
Billy, Ragsdale set us both up to be killed, and he's going to get all the money if nobody wins the race.
Ragsdale? That's Snivel and Sneak! Then one of us has gotta win.
So Billy has an epiphany. He realizes that Eli is the better man. He is not such a good man, so how could he win when his brother saved his life. He can't beat his brother at this. He knows his brother's the better man. The mayor in town takes the stage to start laying claim to the will and to the town when Jenny and the kids roll up with some Sneed men tied up in the back of a wagon. I don't know where they got the wagon from, but, that's just what happens.
Well, yeah, because wasn't the wagon destroyed?
Billy's wagon was destroyed.
Yeah.
Their wagon broke apart. Maybe it's the Sneed's men's wagon. Maybe. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
there was
maybe
that, yeah.
they were double parked somewhere.
Yeah. Suddenly a call goes out. Rider coming. But who is it? And I got like Blazing Saddles flashbacks too during this too. Who is it? Well, it's Eli attached to Six Horse Team, but Eli looks funny, a bit dirty. As the mayor tries to flee, Eli shoots at the mayor, revealing the fact that Eli really is Billy. And Eli comes into town in his long johns, the real Eli. So at some point, they change clothes, and it's not really clear as to why they changed clothes.
Well, it sounded, because when Eli came into town, it sounded like the clothes switch was not consensual. Like, okay. I think that Billy might have knocked out Eli or something and taken his hat and taken his clothes, because Eli comes into town pretty pissed, saying, "I want a word with you." Like, there's literally bigger things afoot. There's things going on here. Plots are happening. And he wants to talk about how he stole his hat or whatever.
We find Mr. Bloodshy again at this point. He's positioned at the top of a building. He's trying to lasso the mayor as the wagon that the mayor is driving is, leaving town, because everyone who tries to flee a town they just robbed would take the long way through. And that's a weird statement to make, but just to clarify, the mayor is trying to leave the town because Billy with a ton of money, right? Billy and Eli are back. They're going, "Hey, wait a minute. We know you're trying to kill us." So the mayor jumps in a wagon and then takes the scenic route. This town isn't very big. You can go in one direction 8 feet and you're out of the main square. It's like Valentine and Red Dead Redemption. It's like there's nowhere to go. Yeah. But somehow it takes him 8 hours to even clear the town, because he's like, well, I got to go by here and pick up my dry cleaning, and then maybe I got to go. He's just going all over the place. It's very, very bizarre.
No, it becomes like when the characters from Scooby-Doo start running in and out of the different doors. Like, because he goes like west, and then all of a sudden he's cutting across the scene, like heading like northeast.
Right. It's very odd. It's like he's lost. Yeah. What's going on? So that's happening. The mayor's fleeing. Bloodshy's at the top of a building. He's trying to lasso the mayor because he doesn't want the mayor to get away. But Bloodshy's old. He misses. He falls, gets wrapped up in a bit of curtain that's flapping out the window, and falls into the wagon just at the same time as it passes underneath him, which then the wagon, crashes, and the mayor's going, "It's a ghost. It's the ghost of, Bloodshy," or whatever. And it's very funny. The wagon crashes. The mayor goes one way into a pile of hay. Mr. Bloodshy goes the other way into a shaft of a well, I guess, or something like that.
Like the water's like big town, like the town's big water holder, I don't know what that water is for. Is it for the horses but yeah, it's like a big ass water tower.
Yeah, he just gets dunked.
Yeah.
And hits hard. It's weird. It's just, the whole scene is very odd.
But again, no one knows he's there.
No one knows he's there. Right.
So this whole other human body just went into the town's drinking water or whatever, and no one cares. No one sees him.
The mayor gets locked up, and he's the whole time he's going, "I saw a ghost. It was the ghost of Mr. Bloodshy," or whatever. And we see Eli addressing the town, saying the two brothers will split the money and fix up the town.
And so my brother and I have decided to share the money and use it to make a new town.
Good. A town a whole lot different than the one you've been used to. And if anybody has any other ideas, they're gonna have to answer to me. My brother, Eli. It's going to be a town I hope you'll all be proud of. I know I'm going to be proud of the new church and the new school we're building. A new school for our children. Yours and mine.
He means us. We've got a father.
And I'll tell you something else. Not only will these children have the best teacher in the West, they'll have the prettiest one they've ever seen.
Great. Perfect. So there you go. Eli's adopting the kids. Everything's good. The brothers say a prayer for their dad, who goes off to talk about his daughters in Cactus Ridge.
I know. And I'd looked up like Hot Lead Cold Feet 2 just to see if they had somehow made a sequel.
Yeah. And I guess to put a finer point on that, Mansfield is like, oh, well, what are we doing now? He's like, well, I got to go look at my daughters, Calamity Jane and Wild Rose Cactus Face or whatever. And it basically sets it up for a sequel, and that never happened, thank God.
Well, and you're just like, you can imagine, like, if Wild Billy is a certain way, think about two caterwauling Western women. Oh, Christ.
That'd be great. The end. That's it. That is Hot Lead and Cold Feet, Matt. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to get into the nitty gritty, little behind the scenes stuff, a bunch of facts that we found out about the movie, and talk a little bit more about it. So hang on, everyone. It's Buena Vista Boys. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for hanging on, everybody. We are back. We're going to talk about the cool facts we found out about Hot Lead and Cold Feet, and there were kind of a number of them, and I'm pretty excited about this. So, Matt, take us through some cool stuff. Surprise us a little bit.
Okay, yeah. This movie, it doesn't have like a deep history like some other films, but there is such an interesting interweaving of talent through this movie. Like Jim Dale, who we were talking about earlier, is a powerhouse. Absolutely.
Yes.
So he got his start in the UK doing stand-up. And I feel like stand-up is different in the UK. So I'd be interested to see what stand-up looked like, many, many years ago in the UK specifically.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
But the guy, he started out doing that, and then he went on to become a musician, and he released a song called Be My Girl that reached number 2 on the charts in 1957.
Which actually have. Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, absolutely.
My baby, I need you. Be my girl. To hug you and squeeze you. Be my girl. I wanna do things for you. How I need you. Be my girl. You're driving me crazy.
Classic 50s,
Your kisses just thrill me. Be my girl. I want you to love me. How I need you. Be my girl.
I am transported.
So good, man.
I want to malt it right now.
Absolutely.
But yeah, see, this is something interesting about Jim Dale that I didn't realize is that he does the unabridged version of Harry Potter audiobooks. And I've listened to a ton of these, and I did not know that was him. And he does a fantastic job.
Nice.
I mean,
I've never heard them.
Oh, they're good. He's damn near like radio show on his own. And yeah, he does some of the voices for the video games and some of the Harry Potter DVD extras. And he holds 3 Guinness World Records, one for occupying the first 6 places in the top 10 audiobooks of America and Canada in 2005.
Yeah, and I feel like, I mean, that's obviously just all Harry Potter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good.
But I mean, I'd take it. I'd take a Guinness record. But his second is for creating 134 different voices for one audiobook. And again, it's no joke. I mean, I don't know what they're doing in the background, but he is really good at keeping those voices correct too. Like I can't keep 3 voices correct when I'm reading to my kids. I'm like, oh yeah, shoot, that's a different guy's voice. Hold on. So 134 different voices in the audiobook, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. So it's for that specific book, and that's a pretty hefty book. So
yeah,
good for him. And his third is for breaking his own record with 146 voices for Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, 2007.
I could have done 147. I'm just saying.
Dude's like, yeah, I just dunked on myself. Dale opened every episode of the ABC drama Pushing Daisies as the unseen narrator, which I also didn't know, and I loved that show. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then he played Dr. Terminus in Pete's Dragon and Sir Mordred in The Unidentified Flying Oddball. And it's crazy now that I think about it, because when I was reading his IMDb and I saw that he was Dr. Terminus from Pete's Dragon, it hit me. I was like, oh yeah. Like it's in the eyes. Like, cause he has a beard in that, and his acting is actually really good.
Yeah. In this, it's pretty good too. I mean, it's good, but
he's very character acty in this.
Yes.
He is playing 3 characters,
campy characters.
Yeah.
Too.
And
there's not a
really
straight
chewing it up.
Yeah.
And he also is in Pete's Dragon, but I don't know why. It's like there's a strange break when he's somehow playing a villain. He can like get so much deeper into that character, and he's really good in that movie. And I didn't make the connection because the acting in that to me is so good that I didn't put it together that it was the same guy.
Yeah.
But the director of this movie, Robert Butler, he was perfectly suited for directing this movie because he had cut his teeth directing pretty much every Western genre television show there was. Like
okay.
he did Have Gun Will Travel. He did Bonanza, The Rifleman, The Virginian, Gunsmoke. I mean, I could name 25 more, because it's like the 1 season show called like the Mountain Man or
right.
Glory Canyon.
Yeah.
But it's
Water
like, so
well.
This guy was deep into legitimate Western lore already, tons of experience in it. And then what I also thought was cool about that though, is like, he did 6 episodes of Batman 1966 and he did 3 episodes of Star Trek, and he did 2 episodes of The Twilight Zone. Twilight Zone's going to come up a lot, folks. I
think so. Yeah. I'm seeing that pattern already.
But it's like, but I looked it up, and the 2 episodes of The Twilight Zone he did had no Western theme at all. And there's tons of Western episodes of The Twilight Zone. So I thought that was fascinating.
Everyone needs a break, man.
Yeah. but it's also, what I like is the fact that the Batman shows how campy he can be, how he can handle camp pretty well. And also he directed, I believe, the first 2 movies of the trilogy, the Medfield College trilogy, which is The Computer Wears Tennis Shoes. Yeah. So like that, there's 3 movies in that. And actually I'll get to that with a writing team.
Okay.
But so that director directed 2 of the 3 in that trilogy, and which makes me excited because I think we're going to hit those up at some point.
Oh, absolutely. And come on. You can't not with a name like The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes. There's no way.
Right. I'm actually really excited for Now You See Me, Now You Don't. Where they make the invisible spray.
God.
But that's the kind of the great thing about this is the writing team for this movie is Joseph Micavetti, Arthur Alsberg, and Don Nelson. And they all wrote the screenplay of this together. And they also wrote the entire Medfield College trilogy. So they wrote The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, Now You See Me, Now You Don't, The Strongest Man in the World. I'm actually expecting a lot from them because they wrote this. This is a tight plot. This is pretty funny, pretty good.
Yeah.
And then they wrote all 3 of those movies together, and the same director did at least 2 of them. So big things are coming. But then I also thought it was funny that Rod Pifhath, he got credited. Thank you. He got credited for writing the story on this, but it's literally his only story credit. Like I don't think he has any other credit in IMDb. So I wonder if he just like pitched this in the lunchroom one day.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's how that would happen, where it's like, or that was his only good, he was a one and done guy. He was like, I don't know, that's it. It's all I got.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about how you get a story credit because he didn't write the screenplay for it. It's just, he was telling a buddy one day this idea he had, and they're like, oh, we'll give you credit for that. Okay.
Yeah, it could be like a short story he wrote, or I have this idea, and so if you create the characters, then you get credit for coming up with the story. And I think all those credits kind of, and I think those credits changed over the years, like what they called or the percentage of what you have to write to get a credit has evolved over the years. So who knows? It literally could be the producers giving their friend a byline or whatever.
I totally get that. I mean, I think people have gotten producer credits for less.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, but I thought this was really interesting. Again, this movie in and of itself is okay. We've agreed it's okay.
Yeah.
But the talent that was pulled for this movie is among the greats, because something good is bound to happen. That song that we had played earlier that they were singing in Philadelphia, and then they closed the movie out with it.
Yeah.
That was written by Buddy Baker and Arthur Alsberg and Don Nelson. So Buddy Baker and then two of these screenwriters from this movie put that song together. And I'm a big Buddy Baker fan.
I don't know who he is.
Oh, this is great. Okay. See, and I thought saying it, like, some people who are into Disney, they might already be like, yeah, I know this dude. It's no big deal. So,
I mean, the name sounds familiar, but also it just, kind of sounds like it goes together.
Well, and that's, I was hoping you would ask, because don't worry, I have.
Yeah. Well, remember, I'm more of a Disney parks history guy.
Well, and you're going to love this
movie
because
guy, which is why I want to do the show, right?
I know. Well, and he's got Disney park history, baby. Don't worry.
Let's go.
Okay. So Norman Dale Buddy Baker, born January 4th, 1918, died July 26, 2002. So he was a composer who worked on many Walt Disney production movies. He scored tons of movies between the 50s and like 1987. And one of my favorites, Summer Magic. He did The Misadventures of Merlin Jones, The Monkey's Uncle, The $1 Million Duck, The Apple Dumpling Gang, which this movie, Hot Lead Cold Feet, sometimes gets compared to, because there's lots of similar connections. And then also the movie No Deposit, No Return, which is also, I'll talk about in a minute, which is also written by the same guys who wrote this movie.
Okay. Interesting.
And also he scored the Shaggy DA.
Oh, we'll get to him then.
Our good boy.
Yeah.
So one of the notable contributions to the Disney park that Buddy Baker made, and there are many, is composing Grim Grinning Ghosts.
Okay.
Yeah. So he wrote the song for that, while Exitensio did the lyrics for it.
Nice.
And Buddy Baker was named a Disney legend in 1989. And he has an honorary Main Street window over the car barn at the Disneyland park, which reads Plaza School of Music, Sheet Music, B. Baker.
What's the car barn?
I don't know where the car barn is. I have no idea what that is.
A Plaza School of Music. I don't know why, but I feel like it's in that courtyard where like the flower used to be, where like the lockers are. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. And I didn't know if you had covered this on Ears Up at all.
We may have at some point. Sometimes when you're running a show, you tune out a little bit because you're trying to figure out what to do next. You know what I mean? So, Bev is probably, giving the Main Street window talk. I'm like, oh God, what are we going to do now? Whatever. Okay.
I want to close out with Buddy Baker only in the fact that it's like in 1950, he became a professor at LA City College. And among his earliest students were film composer Jerry Goldsmith. So he taught Jerry Goldsmith. Jerry Goldsmith went on to, he scored, like 100 movies, but he did Poltergeist, The Twilight Zone, the movie, Gremlins 2, Total Recall, The Burbs.
Oh, jeez, man.
But then his connection to Disneyland is that he did the music for Soarin' Over California.
Wow, look at us.
This is crazy. So you got Buddy Baker writing stuff,
so cool.
And then he's teaching other guys who go on to then make stuff all at the Disney parks. That's great.
Plus most of the hits from the 80s.
Yes.
Basically.
Oh yeah. No,
yeah.
His list is too long to mention here.
That's great.
We talked about Darren McGavin. I think basically everybody remembers Darren McGavin from as the dad from Christmas Story. I think he's going to go down in history as that.
Oh,
but
yeah.
A lot of horror old heads would also remember him as Kolchak the Night Stalker.
Yeah, classic series, so good.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if you like X-Files, but without the exposition, I guess. So good.
If you like outdated references to like newspapers, right? Just a guy going around like really angry that he can't get some byline about some Bigfoot or vampire. And you're like, I don't understand. What's a byline? I don't know what that is.
Yeah, it's so delusional where he's like, these things are real to him. So he basically is a reporter and he goes around and does stories on, supernatural things. And so for him, they're just run of the mill. Like, this is what happens. This is just part of life, but nobody ever takes him seriously.
Yeah.
And he's very frustrated about it. And it's such a good twist on that kind of that newspaper, jockey kind of, I got to push for the big story. It's like, oh yeah, what's it about? Bigfoot had lunch with a vampire at Musso and Frank's. You're like, oh yeah, okay, great.
And it always kind of is that proto X-Files where it's like you're seeing the thing happening, but there's no evidence left over. And so you feel that same frustration. So we talked about No Deposit, No Return. And Darren McGavin and Don Knotts, who previously worked together, or who worked together in this movie, work together, I believe, as the main characters in this movie. It's from 1976. And again, it's written by the same team that does Hot Lead, Cold Feet. So I'm actually interested in checking that out just personally, because I bet it's pretty damn good.
Oh, we'll watch it for sure.
Yes. So there's a side character that we didn't discuss here, and it's fine that we didn't get into it, but when you guys watch this movie, most of the scenes that Don Knotts is in, he is running down and getting into these really weird showdowns with a guy named Rattlesnake.
Yeah, dude.
And it's awesome. Like, their first encounter is so hilarious because Don Knotts is really giving him the business, telling him he's gonna paint his name all over that sheet. And Rattlesnake has just come out of getting his hair cut, so he's got the barber, like frock on. Yeah. He's got hair all over it, and this hand just comes out of nowhere and grabs the frock off of him.
Do you remember? And I didn't bring it up in the kind of overview because it sort of really goes nowhere. But do you remember what started their beef off?
Oh, yeah. It was because Don Knotts had insulted Rattlesnake's sister. And then Rattlesnake says, that's what Rattlesnake says. He's like, you insulted my sister. And then Don Knotts says, I asked her to marry me.
Yeah. And Rattlesnake goes, so you did it. Which is very clever. It's very good writing where it's like, that's the insult. Is that you wanted to marry my sister? Are you kidding me?
How dare you?
And then it never gets anywhere. They never end up shooting each other for one reason or another. Check it out. It's a good part of the movie.
And the only reason I bring him up is because that actor is named Jack Elam, and he has a resume in television and movies, especially Western movies and television, as long as my arm. 210 acting credits. He's been in basically every Western TV show except Maverick. I looked it up. He has never been in the show Maverick, but dude, he's been on, again, Gun Will Travel, Bonanza, The Rifleman, The Virginian, Gunsmoke, How the West Was Won. And then, of course, I had to bring it back to The Twilight Zone. He was in the episode of The Twilight Zone, one episode called Will the Real Martian Please Stand Up? And he plays this insane guy at the diner counter at this diner where everyone is stuck at. Mm-hmm. And it turns out there might be an alien somewhere amongst them. And he's sort of the red herring because he's so insane. I think I
remember seeing this. I think that sounds very familiar to me.
Yeah. And the thing is, you notice in the movie, he has sort of the natural lazy eye. And so they play that up, like, because he sort of has that natural eye kind of going off to the side. So in a lot of his characters, they sort of use that as like, oh, he's crazy or he's wild.
There's something wrong with this man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's perfectly fine with going along with that. Work is work. But two movies that I found that he was in that I have to bring up to you. He was in a movie called Dirty Dingus McGee.
Okay.
And he was in another movie called The Cockeyed Cowboys of Calico County.
Jeez Louise. Those are good names.
And just to close it out, he played the character Scrooge in a movie called Scrooge's Rock and Roll Christmas, where Scrooge uses a snow globe to bring rock acts of the 1980s to him so that he can experience Christmas through these
terrible
new 80s renditions of old Christmas carols.
Oh, that sounds awful.
It's terrible. Three Dog Night is in it, and Paul Revere and the Raiders.
That sounds like a paycheck. It doesn't sound like a movie you do because it sounds great. It sounds like, you know what? I'm divorced a couple of times, and I got alimony. I got to pay the bills. So yes, I will be Scrooge in Scrooge's Rock and Roll Christmas.
God.
That sounds terrible.
I promise that's as far away from Disney as I'm going to bring it. I'm going to bring it back in. Don't worry. This movie, when it went to theaters, it had Mr. Toad from The Wind in the Willows play in front of it. So that original short with, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, they retitled it to The Madcap Adventures of Mr. Toad. And it played ahead of this movie.
So they cut the Toad part out of Ichabod and, whatever.
Yeah. They just sort of knived it out, like
That's
carved
weird.
it out and put it in.
I mean,
there.
what a weird, I don't know. I find that odd.
I guess
I don't know why.
my issue with it is like, okay, it's 1978. People are pretty used to going to the movies now, right?
Yeah.
Where Star Wars is like already come out. Like, is it really that hard to get somebody to the movies? Like, I don't know why. The runtime's already an hour 29 minutes. I don't know why they needed to pad another 30 minutes on that.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was trying to sort out. Like, why that film? Like, why that short? Or why why Mr. Toad?
Yeah.
Nowadays, the cynical side of me be like, oh, well, because they're testing out to push more merch or opening a new ride or whatever.
For real.
But for now, it's like, well, yeah, I don't know. That seems, you know what? That seems odd.
Yeah, no.
I wonder. Well, you know what? It could be because when did Disney World open? 76?
No, I think Disney. Am I trying? No, 72. October of 1972.
I'm looking. I'm checking. I'm fact checking you live. 71. October 71.
Ah, crap. All right. Sorry.
So for me, I'm going like, oh, well, maybe it was Advance of Disney World because they have Toad there, but that would make no sense. So I don't know. Maybe someone's like, I like Toad.
Is Epcot 72? I have to be right about something.
Maybe. Yeah. Who knows?
Parts of this film were shot on location in Deschutes National Forest in Oregon, from Snowy Mount Bachelor along the Cascade Range, across the Deschutes River Gorge to the Black Rocks of Lava Butte. And I will attest. So I have family that lives in Lapine, Oregon, which is about 30 minutes from Bend, Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
And that area is legit. That is old West.
Yeah.
And a lot of it still is. I mean,
Nice.
It is real old rivers and dirt and that sort of silty ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't surprised to find out that it was filmed there, but I also thought that it was interesting that the western town of Bloodshy, Arizona was used 3 years earlier as Quake City, California in the Apple Dumpling Gang.
Oh,
and so that's why a lot of people have that. Like if you go and you watch kind of both movies, like you can see that they just kind of reboarded up and used like in the shootout scene. There's a couple of scenes that take place in the Apple Dumpling Gang right there where those guys are doing that 17 gun shootout.
Yeah. Well,
And so
I was looking up a little bit about the location for that, and because it looked very similar to a lot of other westerns, and I thought it might be, was it Paramount City? Was that that western town in the hills in LA that burnt down recently?
Yeah.
I think that was the town. I think that was it because it was just used as a western town.
Could have been.
And it just had all the fronts, and it's recognizable in a lot of western themed TV shows and movies and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I couldn't find anywhere else that there's currently like a western town set up like that Disney would have used.
Yeah.
Because there's a couple other locations that I know that Disney has, and like if you go to Google Maps, you can see them, but nothing has a western town set up right now. Or I mean, they could have bulldozed over it, but I think you're right. The Don Knotts connection. I see why a lot of people kind of tie this to the Apple Dumpling Gang.
It's good to be back here.
But then
it's a classic, man. I watched Don Knotts work, and then coming off of, I did another show on Ears Up with Scraping the Vault, where we did the made for TV special Ernest Saves Splash Mountain.
Oh, I listened to that. Yeah.
Ernest Goes to Splash Mountain.
Yeah.
And watching Ernest work, Don Knotts is like the proto Ernest, where they're very similar, where you just ham it up for no reason, you know?
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's awesome to watch both of those people just do the same thing consistently and make their money on just pulling faces for the camera.
Well, and that character of like that real dopey confidence, right? Yeah, well, I'm gonna do it, all right. So Eli's Iron Donkey, by the way, is currently located on the north side of Thunder Mountain Railroad in Disneyland.
Wow.
You can see it right now. And it still has the red 11 on it and everything. So
that's cool. I didn't know that.
Dude, I've seen that thing 100 times and I thought it was just garbage that they put there as set dressing, you know?
Yeah.
And so you walk from Fantasyland into Frontierland, and right there, kind of past the bathrooms, there's that area that, you know, I think it has a door that employees can use, cast members can use. And then right on the other side of that is a little mine cave, and the little iron donkey is right there in front of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just an interesting thing now. You can go look at it and go, yeah, I saw that in a movie once.
Yeah, that thing went backwards for no reason.
I don't know if either of us knew this, but Moochie has returned to this movie.
Oh, I love it.
So Kevin Moochie Cochran was an associate producer on this movie. Like, he wasn't in the movie, but he associate produced this film.
Wow. And of course, Moochie from The Shaggy Dog, our last episode.
That's the one and the same. Like,
that's cool, man. 20 years later, he's getting AP credit.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
I know.
Love that for him.
It's so just weird. It's so funny. But then, so the main producer of this movie is Ron Miller, which is husband of Diane Marie Disney. And he became the president of Walt Disney Company in 1980, and he was the CEO in 1983. And the only reason I bring him up is because he was really good at expanding Disney's movie style. So he expanded and explored what they were going to do as far as like, how can I make a movie company that gets away from these kind of movies? You know what I mean?
Right.
So he made Touchstone Films. And so he also created the Disney Channel. He pushed money into movies like Tron. And he ended up giving Tim Burton his funding so he could make Vincent and he could make Frankenweenie.
Yeah, both great little stop motion films, man.
I know. And we cover Frankenweenie on the latest episode of Shelter from Oblivion. So I was reading this and I was like, oh, this is awesome.
That's cool.
I actually didn't know that. So this is like an extra piece from that. Apparently what had happened is one day Walt had called and said, hey, I've got a film I'm running tonight. Why don't you come over? So Diane and I went over there, and the film was called To Kill a Mockingbird. When it was over, Walt said, damn, I wish I could make a film like that, but he couldn't.
That's not Disney. You're right.
Yeah. And so I thought that was cool. Like, it's like, and Touchstone Pictures has made so many awesome movies that it's really great that he was like, okay, how can we get around what we're doing, you know, and make these interesting, fun pictures, but like that have a little bit more grit than our brand can offer.
Right.
This is so smart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Jason, when Eli goes off the edge of that cliff.
Yes, on the Iron Donkey in the Native American tent.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
Did you hear the signature? Yahoo!
I did. Yeah, I was like, hey, that's goofy.
Yes,
that's goofy, and I didn't really think much of it because I'm like, well, you know, I guess they're just cycling the sound effects, but I probably should have paid a little more attention to it.
I wanted to close out with this because you had that great sound effect history from our last show.
Yeah.
And you went deep. And so I thought I would repay you.
All right,
I don't go nearly as deep, but I did want to continue the legacy of fun sound effects for movies.
Okay,
so,
let's go.
Transcribed as Yahoo-hoo-hoo-wee.
Okay.
That is called by people on the internet now the Goofy Holler.
Sure.
And so the holler was originally recorded by yodeler Hans Schroll, June 23rd, 1941, for the short The Art of Skiing. You remember
Great
that?
short, by the way. Oh, yeah, for sure.
So good.
All those Goofy shorts, classics.
Yes.
Because when I think of Goofy, I still go back to those particular things, but maybe that's just my age showing. I don't think millennials, they're thinking of like a Goofy movie.
Yeah, no, and it is used in the Goofy movie. But I like to think of there's one here where a Goofy short that I absolutely love. So since they had that sound, they have used it in over 30 shorts, including Lambert the Sheepish Lion, Goofy Gymnastics, which I love. I think I like it better than Art of Skiing. So and then also How to Be a Detective. Those are 3 of the 30. It's also been in 45 television shows, including DuckTales, Blue's Clues, Fraggle Rock, Rocko's Modern Life, and Batman the Animated Series.
Which is weird because it's it's associated with Goofy.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can use it in Batman.
Well, and I'm wondering if it's literally the Yahoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-ee, even though somebody else is doing, can someone else do the voice, but it's still considered the Goofy holler?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I don't know, but you know what?
It's not like the Wilhelm scream where it has to be that sound effect.
Yeah, I wonder if it does, but I think what a lot of times what happens in sound effects is, you layer it with different things. So you could potentially take some of that, maybe like the middle hoo-hoo or whatever, and use that part of the scream, layer it with something else, and then you've used effectively that sound effect, the Goofy holler, but it's not the whole thing. And maybe that's it. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, no, it's been in 61 plus movies to date. It was in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Toy Story, The Apple Dumpling Gang, Bedknobs and Broomstick, Ernest Goes to Camp.
There we go.
And Jackass the movie.
Nice.
I mean, so many more, but yeah, that it was nice to hear that really like brought that whole movie together for me as like this real great piece of Disney history.
I love that.
Yeah, I think my only closing thoughts about this movie is that when they came into the town of Bloodshy and everyone was fighting and hollering and carrying on, it made me really sad that they never ended up making that Western River run in Magic Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
The Imagineers had come up with basically a Pirates of the Caribbean, but it was all Western themed. And they had all these amazing scenes. And one of them was like a horse on a roof, right? And guys doing a big shootout.
Oh, man.
And so I'm seeing this movie and I'm like, if you could get animatronics to do like 1/10 of this would have been an amazing ride.
Yeah, dude. That would have been cool.
Yeah.
Overall, I liked it. I thought it was a funny movie. It was really well done. The acting was great. And it's a Disney Western. It's kind of what is advertised.
Yeah.
I thought it was awesome.
I found myself having genuine laughs in this movie. I get surprised at how clever they are. I don't give them enough credit ahead of time.
Absolutely. And I think because storytelling has changed so much over the years, especially you transition from the 70s to 80s, that's the way stories were told in those 2 decades is so different. It's so different that you sort of forget anything after the 80s of like how story was really told, because you think of it as like, oh, antiquated or whatever. But you're right. If you just take it for face value and realize it's going to be kind of weird, Disney movies were really tight. There was a lot of weird stories and a lot of different subplots, but for the most part, everything's concise. But some, movies from the 80s, it takes half an hour to get into the plot. You're like, oh my God, shoot me now.
Yeah.
I don't want to finish this movie. I can't think of anything on the top of my head, but you know what I mean? There's the standouts are the standouts in the 80s for a reason, right? Like Ghostbusters. They put you right into that movie. You know, Gremlins puts you right into the movie. It draws you in immediately. These kind of movies are classics for a reason, not only because they were good, but I think because they got into the movie right away, and that's what helped make them great. Right?
Yeah, they hook the audience and they keep the audience, and that's why they have such good rewatchability. Because again, there's no part where you're like, oh God, yeah, okay, I got it. That's 30 minutes in the middle. I got to remember that's boring, but the rest of it's good.
Yeah. Well, anyway, everybody, we are going to get out of here. Thank you very much for spending a little bit of time with us talking about Hot Lead and Cold Feet. If you want to hear more Disney content like this, you can go to earsup-podcast.com. That's ears with a Z, because, you know, back in 2013 when we started this, that was really cool. And you'll just have to believe me. That's just what it is. We have a lot of shows over there, and Matt has a great show as well. Talk to you about a little bit about your show, Matt, please. For everybody.
Okay, yeah. I have a podcast that I started not too long ago with my friend Andy. It's called Shelter from Oblivion. It has a really crazy name, but we basically do sort of like more nostalgia trip stuff. Right? You know, we've done a breakdown of The Burbs, and we've talked about forts, and we recently just dropped an episode where we talked about our favorite 80s dogs. Come check it out. If you sort of like 80s, 90s pop culture, the whole point is you're coming to hang out with us. We're going to chat about stuff. You're going to learn things you may not have known about your favorite pop culture things. And it's sort of just a nice way to like just take a break for a little bit.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much again for tuning in. And till next time, we'll see you later.
Bye.